Tonight at the Collingwood Rant, we have got a very special guest to talk about the Jack Ginnivan situation.
Is it Gil McLaughlin?
Not quite. Someone more special.
More special than Gil?
Yep, somebody who's been with us the whole time. And I'm talking about none other than the Bear.
The Bear.
Bear, thank you for joining us.
I don't think the Bear spoke.
I think he's got a bit to say tonight.
Well, let's hear what the Bear has to say.
Well, thanks for having me, Sly.
Bear, what do you think of the treatment of Jack Ginnivan?
It's an absolute disgrace.
Yep, that's fair.
What did you think of Mason Redmond's tackle on Jack Ginnivan in the first quarter?
Good question.
That was an absolute disgrace. That bloke's a
Well, yep.
The AFL have actually signed off on that tackle and said it was legal. How do you feel about that?
Well, they're too. I'm absolutely fucking done with this competition. The way that they treat players of Jack's ilk, they ripped his fucking head off the
Well, Anthony Hudson, the commentator, he popularised Ginnivan diving. He's the one who really put a spotlight on it. How do you feel about Anthony Hudson?
Hudson, is there a bigger I know there's a bigger head. Is there a bigger with a head? He's off the charts, that bloke. He's doing my head in.
Yeah. Both barrels with a Bear.
How do you feel about the AFL in general?
The AFL, they're all Who's a bigger the AFL or Hudson? It's hard to split the two of them, really. Ah!
I think we might have to remove the kids show rating on this episode.
Possibly. Bear, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Bear.
Thanks for having me, Sly.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm 948 years old, Spook.
Spook, how would you think about that win?
Well, what do I think about the win?
What would you think about that win?
Not much happened, though. It was a bit of a boring game.
First quarter was about as much as you could get footy porn.
I'd said it was a tale of two halves, really.
Most games are a tale of two halves.
That first quarter was just some of the best football
Sublime.
I've seen them play over the journey. And then you had the polar opposite in that second quarter, where everything just turned to shit.
Yeah, look, I don't want to complain because we won, so I can say what I want. And I actually said it to yourself and a couple other fine gentlemen.
You don't know any fine gentlemen.
You're right. I said it to our chat group. When I saw Matt Stevig's name come up in the umpiring, I said, prepare for a bad game. Jeez. It's like I'm psychic. And that's actually interesting because, you had...
Do you think Stevic is Slavic for shit?
Could possibly be if it is Slavic.
I have no idea whether Stevic is Slavic, but it rhymes.
But you have you go back years when James Hurd teed off on the umpire. Was it Scott McLaren?
Yeah, it could be. The big goofy looking one.
I don't know what he looked like. But it's like there's certain umpires you think, yeah, I know the sort of thing we're going to get. I know several former players who talked about umpires they just really didn't like getting. Anyway, first quarter, we actually dominated in threes also, interestingly. And then that second quarter, I think it was like about 7-2. And it just went to like 16-8 or something. They just got everything. They got holdings. They got holding the balls. We weren't getting anything in response. Jeez, and the momentum turned. I think about their first 4 goals came from free kicks in some way.
Because we won, you're allowed to say that.
I can say
it
what the
can't
fuck
be sour grapes, but you're on the money there.
It's appalling. And like I will say, in the last quarter, we actually started getting a few free kicks. It was like they were evening them almost. And that's when we got back into the game. You can't fucking tell me that free kicks don't help influence momentum at vital times.
They certainly influence the game when they're that close to the goals that you can convert.
Yeah, but having said that, midfield still a fucking massive hole.
No. So the funny thing is, like that first quarter, we were just dominating to the point that we were running and just carving through Essendon like so many sides have done to us the last couple of weeks, even though we obviously eventually counter that. But the second half, they just tore us apart. We got absolutely smashed in the clearances. And, it's telling. The thing is, we're winning at the moment. We're pulling victories out of our collective asses.
Out of our bears.
But it doesn't hide the cracks that are there. And look, it's still very much a development year. But there are very glaring issues that need to be addressed. And Fly said as much. So
Yeah. Oh, well, look, I'm sure they're aware what's going on, but this has been going on the whole year. Again, you go back to that Geelong game where we're 6 goals up and then Geelong just waltzed over. We barely touched in the last quarter. You go back to round 1 against St Kilda, we were 5 goals up. They overhauled us. It's happened consistently throughout the year. And the worrying thing is, when that happens, we just don't touch it. And one thing with this game is I really thought they needed to change it up. He just pretty much stayed with the structures, which is fine. This is his prerogative. Somehow he got the coaching job over me. But I really didn't like the sort of look of the midfield at times. It was really small. I had like Elliott in there and Josh Dacos in there. And it was like, you got to put some bigger bodies in there. And you possibly got to put someone, like McCreary is the guy I'd go to right now and just go on merit for 20 minutes and just stick on him. I don't care if you don't get a touch. Just stick on him and make him feel it whenever he gets the ball. Tackle him hard.
Smack him around like a cheap suitcase.
Smack him around like Mason Redmond smacked Ginnivan. Let me ask you something. You think that was a legitimately bad tackle? Do you think that was possibly a little bit...
See, the thing is now, the AFL has given licence to tacklers to do whatever the fuck they want without fear of being penalised.
Yeah.
And he came in clearly with the intent to rip his head off.
Yeah.
And he got away with it. I mean, it's a poor fucking message for a competition that sits there and thrives itself on this need to protect the head sacrosanct, all those sorts of issues. Unless you're Jack Ginnivan, you can have it fucking torn off. No problems whatsoever. You'll have nothing to answer.
Well, the AFL actually signed off and said that tackle was fine.
He instigated, apparently. I don't know how the fuck he did. The ball sort of hit the deck. He's run at an angle to intercept. And Redmond's just come in and fucking collared him. He had no time to put his arms up or drop the knees or whatever it is. And there's plenty of fucking
It came from a Cox handball where he was just trying to run past. And Redmond, look, I actually believe Redmond went for the head. I think he went for the head. He said, I can go for it. And if I'm going to go for it, I'm going to go for it hard. Ross Lyon said on Footy Classified the other week, he goes, I'm seeing people tackle with closed fists. And, far be it for me to agree with Eddie McGuire. Eddie McGuire actually got it right. He goes, you're actually now encouraging players to fucking just go to whack if it's there. And you have all these different murky grey areas. Did he drop the knees? Did he not drop the knees? It's fucked. And the AFL's fucked this up. And the Ginnivan one had 3 different indiscretions in that one bit of play. He was hit too high. He was then flung over onto the ground, which he should have been holding. And then Redmond actually twists his head into the grass. And that was like that was sort of like that pressure points Judd thing. It was like, you don't really see acts like that where, it's not just a plain strike or something. But that was really shit. And the AFL's done nothing about it because you're a fucking weak organisation. Would you think Collingwood's like someone, let's say the president, should say something?
Has he come out and said something today?
I haven't heard him say anything.
There was a quote somewhere. I haven't read it, I just heard that there was. I'd be disappointed if nothing was said. The thing is, it's you look at that incident, and that's the straw that's broken a lot of people's backs.
Yeah. There's
been a lot of non-Collingwood people expressing their outrage. Internally, you've had Mason Cox come out and call it for what it is. Josh Fraser, I saw today, had a crack about it as well. Dane Swan called it beautifully for what it is, which is pretty much fucked. You've got a collective group of people from all different backgrounds lambasting this decision, and then the AFL has the fucking temerity to come out and make a statement that while there should have been a free paid, it's still Ginnivan's fault for instigating what happened. Well, yeah, I mean, you can have it both ways, apparently.
Well, people like Nathan Jones, fresh out of the game, he called it a free. Alistair Nicholson, the commentator, called it a free.
Alistair Nixon called it as well.
Nah, he called it too.
He was sitting in row G.
Basil Zempoulos called it. He's an Essendon supporter. There's no one other than the AFL. The AFL's the only one who's actually defended and gone, oh, no, it was fine. He instigated that. And then you get fuckwits going, he's got a reputation for it. It's like, well, but so when it's legitimately there. And then you get fuckwits. You get really stupid people.
What did Robbo say?
No, like I see people on Twitter go, he's a flog or he's a hack. So he deserves it, does he? It's like, that's your whole defence. Whether he's the worst player in the league, is the best player, it's irrelevant. They're meant to be fucking treated the same if they get hit high or if they get infringed upon.
Can you think of any other player in the last 20, 30 years...
Joel Selwood?
That's had their head ripped off with such ferocity. Well, it's been like building the last couple of weeks. Each week, the subsequent tackle has been harder. I
want to put something to fucking Anthony Hudson because he was really the one that popularised this. Ginnivan came into the competition...
You've seen the size of his head, though. It's like every tackle he gets his head high. It's like gravity would draw the fist in.
Ginnivan came into this season on 5 games, and Hudson immediately zeroed in on him. Yet, Scott Selwood came into this season like with 320 games.
What about Joel Selwood? When did he come?
Oh, what did I call him?
Scott.
So Joel Selwood, yeah. He came with like
You
320.
can edit that out later.
Nah,
It's the
fuck
magic of technology.
Why has Hudson never called him? I'm really curious.
Probably because he got his name wrong like you did.
Hudson, who hosts Geelong Football Club functions, I'm wondering why he's never called Selwood for ducking. Or
What does he host in his spa at home?
fucking Legionnaire's disease, probably. But that really, I would really want Collingwood to make some noise. You know, I don't want the club to make noise at everything like Eddie Maguire did, but there's times where we really need to be shown to be making a stand. And I think I would seriously be coming out and just going, that's unacceptable. If I was McRae, again, I didn't get the job. I would be saying, next time that happens, you know what? I don't give a fuck if you give up a goal. You all run in and just fucking go after the player who's done it. And just show other clubs, this is not acceptable. You think it is. It isn't. We are going to take this back to you.
Do you know what should happen this week at training? Ginnivan should walk out with a fucking giant neck brace on.
Yeah, that's what Taz, the former Collingwood Rounder, said.
Like Willy Wonka walking in on the cane and then just suddenly throw the thing off and roll into training like nothing's happened. Just to stick it up him. Though I saw today on his Instagram account he's changed his
profile. He's changed it to the choke.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant little move. I mean, I'm sure he'll be cancelled or whatever the term is this week, and he'll be forced into removing and probably issuing a public apology. But I think that really sticks it to the AFL as well. I think it's a great little moment.
Oh, good on him.
Good on him.
2 quarters of just total filthy shit. Essendon ran all over the top of us. Their talls were too fucking tall. They were taking marks
out. Everything, weren't they?
Yeah. Again, I mean, one of the interesting things about all our wins, these close wins, is you have like 3 quarters of just shit football. And a lot of guys just really aren't contributing. Pendlebury had one of the worst games I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He got intercepted,
bad
handballs.
but like that one on the boundary line where he's just wrong-footed himself and got run down, which I think resulted in a goal as well. You're thinking, it's father time, isn't it?
Yeah. Josh Dacus has been one of our better players consistently.
Right.
But other guys are sort of popping in and out, and they're not having enough influence for long enough to sort of carry us. First quarter, Ash Johnson was fucking great.
He was on fire.
And he was pretty good in that last quarter too. But for 2 quarters, I can't blame the forwards because the ball wasn't going down there. 2 quarters, he just had nothing. And I would have liked to see him make some sort of change. And he came into the last quarter, they're 20 points up with about 9 minutes to go. And then something happens. And Elliot, in the post-game interview, actually said, it seems like we need to be in this situation to realise we've got to play more aggressively and all that. So that actually worries me that they need to be painted into a corner before they realise, hang on. Because it felt like almost that first quarter was like, how fucking good are we? And they just dropped the intensity enough for Essendon to get a look in. And then they just shifted the momentum.
Yeah, Fly did say in his post-match press, which I watched today, that he felt that first quarter had been building, like it's what they'd been preparing for, and it finally arrived. It's just disappointing they just didn't carry on with it. But he also said that at the last break that he did question about, stop playing it safe, just back yourselves and go for it. And you think that Chris moment when he just burst through, was it 3 or 4 Essendon players?
Well, he ran
in
back
the midfield.
into it,
I think that was that turning point. One of my mates called it on the text messages that that was it was probably the start of the change where they all looked at that and thought, well, let's back ourselves, and you got nothing to lose at that point, which you turned it into a win. And I think again it's one of those moments where you walk away from that thinking, we clearly can do this.
Well, that was like last week. I mean, I didn't say drop Chris, but someone commented, goes, how dare we drop Chris? I said, put him back to half-back, because that's what you want to see. You want to see that run out of there.
There's every chance it's going to happen this week.
But it was like, once you started getting one piece moving and then the other started falling in, and it's a game plan where it's really, if you stop the main parts of the engine from ticking over, the rest are just, guys like Hoskin Elliott and all that, they really can't get into the game. But you get those guys like Nick Dacos and Chris running, and then everything starts to click into place. I mean, look at the way we went forward, and we were finding, found Josh Carmichael. I mean, what sort of sub is that you bring this guy in as a big-bodied mid, you lose Maynard, who's one of your better defenders, and you think, oh, well, how's this going to work out? And suddenly this guy's actually in the right spot twice to take marks and to
convert,
truly.
2 goals within a couple of minutes of each other.
And the second goal too was that one from an angle where most players would be hooking at him now, and he just walked straight in and he just nailed it. It was brilliant.
We haven't broken his ability to kick yet. That's why. No. It's amazing. When you look at like the impact that Ash had in the first quarter and Carmichael had when he came on. Collectively, these guys between the two of them played 5 games.
Yeah.
They finished the game with 5 goals between the two of them. It's a fair old effort, and you wonder sometimes what does this actually say about the draft process when you can bring some of these ready-made. Because what are they? They're both early 20s. Mid-20s.
Yeah, I think Johnson's a little bit older.
They come in and they hit the ground running. Yeah, it's one of those things. Look, I guess you can't keep them around forever, but there clearly is benefit from that period of when you start at 18 to the mid-20s where things must change as a player.
I've always believed players who've been tossed by the system are a wasted resource in terms of why would you not go back and look at them? And it's almost like they're stigmatised by being cut. And it's like, well, they're being cut, so they're not up to it. But you think, give them 2-3 more years, development, more maturity and all that, put them back in the system. And we've had enough mature age draftees, not just Collingwood, I mean the whole league, where you think these guys can play if they get the chance and they get in the system. So why that's not being exploited more, and why you wouldn't, like a football club, have a department where you go, you know what, we're going to cut a certain player, whoever it is, but we are going to track him for the next 5 years. And maybe even tell him, look, I'm not promising you anything, but we are going to track you and how you do, wherever you end up. And maybe we'll give you another look, when you're 24 or something.
Yep.
And guys like Nathan Freeman's dominating in whatever lower league he's playing, but I'm surprised that sort of no one took a chance on him.
No, they're almost stamped as past the use by date.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, they get stigmatised because of either injuries or they're not up to it. I would have thought that you would say, hey, especially in this fucking league where it's the diluted talent pool, you'd be trying to turn over every rock to find every possible gem you possibly could.
I agree.
That last bit of play, so Pendlebury, what's his name, Jones, misses. Fortunately, because he missed, it allowed us to kick it out. Pendlebury to Moore's running. There's an Essendon player, I don't know who it is, but he's closing on Moore, but then he decides to turn around in the zone, which he just ends up in nowhere.
It's given Moore a couple of metres to deliver the ball.
And he's delivered it perfectly to Bianco. Bianco's weighted the kick well to Elliott. I still can't get over the fact that he's
split the two Essendon players.
And he's marked that on his chest. It's not like he took it overhead where I could understand in his outmarked 2 players. It somehow went over the first player's head. And the second player, he's taken a swipe at it, but it's gone under his swipe. So it's like an amazing...
Oh, it's a beautifully weighted kick. I mean, and even when he's run up, you can see Mijek's running more towards the middle of the arc. And he sees him there briefly, and he's obviously made the decision to play the percentages and send it. That if he didn't take the mark, at least it was going to go over for a stoppage, and you're still a chance to score with that. With what was it, 30 seconds to go at that time? It could have been enough, but it was brilliantly marked as well. When you watch the footage, the ball's arcing in. Elliott's just got his eyes on it. He's essentially running backwards to it as well, and he's just pretty much it's landed straight exactly where he was running. It was just a thing of beauty to watch, and I've watched it 984 times.
I think most people have, and he's converted it so calmly,
Oh, yeah. I mean, like the Iceman gags and stuff came out as well, but he was calm as a cucumber all the way through. Like just didn't seem to be phased. Like even when he's kicked the goal, there was no over the top celebration or anything. He was just stony faced.
Oh, it's like he went into a zone and just stayed there for that whole time. And you get Nick Dacos jumping on him.
And Bianco came in going gangbusters.
Well,
the Dacos celebration was just incredible. Like, he fucking loves to win.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the good thing about, just sort of to backtrack a little bit, is when Howe slips over, it's Nick Dacos who goes and pulls him up and goes, fucking lift your head. Game's not over. But it
Still
also,
in the game, okay?
That Elliott bloody kick, you see Bianco behind him when they replay the footage. I mean, you won't see it in the highlights package. You have to actually watch the whole game. But you see Bianco just fucking leap up, and he's just so excited. And meanwhile, Elliott's just really suave and like,
It was like James Bond.
It was. And he has one knee if it works. It's a good one. What are you going to do? Yeah, what are you specifically going to do about the midfield problem?
Oh, geez, we need some clearance mids. We need some hard inside blocking types. Maynard sort of fits the bill. There's a couple, Creary fits the bill, but they just don't seem to be keen on exploring that. So I don't know whether you've got someone in your sights at the end of the year that potentially comes in. Like, I think, again, the Goey's a massive difference in that area. There's people now going back to...
let me just interject. What's your mail on the Goey?
What's my Marlon de Goey?
Have you heard anything about him, whether he's staying or going?
I believe that the club is keen on him to stay.
Do you have any mail?
No, but other than that, I think clearly the ball rests in his court, you would think. He's a restricted free agent, so he gets to say and choose what he wants to do. I think it's still going to be that question of, is he going to look back on this year and think, look, I owe the club for past indiscretions. I don't think they really beautifully stood by him. Has that upset him to the point where he might just say, fuck it, I'm going?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm curious. What do you think? I mean, you're being coy, so...
Beyond that, I don't know.
Well, I've heard he's going. So,
well, he's either going or staying. One of us is right.
Yeah, so, they need to keep him.
I would think so.
They need to keep him. If this side's going to go anywhere in the short term... Now, again, if they turn around and go, well, our rebuild's 4 years away, then let him go and get some draft picks. But if you're really thinking about contending in the next 3 years, which apparently, if they're fourth now, I'm not saying they'll stay there, but you think, well, if they're fourth, they've probably got like another 1 year up there where they could stay while Pendlebury and Howe and Sidey and all that are there. And then it's how they transition those guys out and bring new players in. And you might have that, they might actually sort of remain pretty balanced. It's like 206. I remember after Buckley, or 207, after Buckley retired and Licuria retired, and then you had like Wakeland go and Clement go and Rocker but they pretty much stayed there because the replacements they were bringing in, like Pendles and Daisy and Travis and Dane Swan and all that, it was just sort of this seamless transition. Now, if they think they can do that, I don't know if they can, because there's a lot of spare parts in the reserves which still haven't shown their value. That's
a good point. I mean, the other one too is you look at, if you believe the rumour mill, we're looking at McStay, Taranto, Hill from GWS, and somebody else, Braun or something. There's another name that pops up from GWS. Obviously, the mega trade with GPS, the mega trade with Grundy going there.
Yep.
If you believe the rumours at this very minute. With the midfield woes, does McStay address it?
The Whitfield Moes.
The Whitfield Moes. With the midfield woes, does McStay address that?
Does
Taranto address that?
Taranto does. I'm going to say this about McStay. I don't understand this. This is the Chris Mayne thing all fucking over.
That's the baffling one with that. Which is why I brought it up. It still doesn't make sense.
No, and and then you look at like the last 8 weeks, let's say. You have a forward line which composed of Mychek. Okay, he's getting a little bit old, but McStay's not really that much younger. Johnson, Oliver Henry, and then you get guys like Hoskin Elliott and whoever the resting ruckman will be, whichever one it is. So that's like your sort of mids to talls. And you're going to bring McStay in there. So who's he actually displacing?
No, and what roles he played? Like one of the clear things in defence yesterday is you had Wright and Draper, and I think there's one other tall for Essendon that was pulling down a fair few grabs. So unless Cox or Cameron was back there to spoil or intercept, our defenders just weren't big enough to cater for that. And it's a screaming need to get a big.
Or is that what they're looking at? Are they looking at McStay as a defender instead?
But he's not tall enough, though. He's only 195 centimetres or something. He's essentially a midfielder with a bigger body. I think he'd have to be, the size of Howe or something like that. He's just... I don't see him as a defender.
I look at him and think, you're behind Hipwood and Danaher, who are two pretty good forwards, and you're really not shining. You've never top 30 goals. I mean, even in 218, most of our forwards are topping 30 goals. And they're going to bring him into a side where he's probably going to assume the key mantle. And if he's not assuming the key mantle, it's like, why the fuck are you bringing him in? So he can be number 3 behind Mychek and Johnson or something. I don't get it. Like I said, it's not just the Chris Mayne thing all over. No disrespect to Chris Mayne because he became a really good defensive mid. But he was brought in as a forward, and that didn't work. And that's like, you're going to get a player, and it's like, we're going to have to justify this. We've brought someone in. We can't drop him because there's bad optics. So find a way to use him. It's just... Collingwood, the really good decision here, the toughest decision to make here is no, we're just not going to bring someone in for the sake of bringing someone in.
The only thing that keeps popping into my head is do they want to be seen to be landing a name?
Well, is it a politicised move?
And does that mean that you're then opening up as a destination future players? Especially if you see that McStay, who's probably maybe a B grader at best, is coming in and getting 600k at Collingwood, then what's the good players going to get?
But then just blowing out the cap. So if you get a good player and he goes, well, you're 200,000 short of what I want. And you're like, well, we're using that on McStay, and they've got to now juggle players or get rid of players. It really doesn't make any sense to me. The forward line is not a finished work. So I recognise you need to go get... So the other guy...
You've got Kruger to come into the picture.
That was the other guy I actually missed out on, Kruger. It's not finished by any means, but is he like... I don't know. Even if you had like a really good forward line, is he like really topping it off or what? It's just... He is what he is. It's just baffling.
Now, if Grundy comes in, you've still got to find something for him and... who's our other ruckman? I can't remember.
Cox and...
not Cox.
Cameron.
Fuck, I don't even
Let me ask you this. With,
but you've got to find something for those two to do.
Would you consider trying to play Grundy as a midfielder?
Like the way Matthew Richardson used to play on the wing for...
right in the middle.
Would you?
Well, he plays like that as a ruckman anyway, so he got like a big fucking body. I don't know if his body will tolerate it.
We do statistically get a lot more clearances when he's in the ruck, but I think that's more because he often pulls it in and just boots it.
Yeah.
Look, you tried. You wouldn't be opposed to trying it. One or two games.
There's not enough sample evidence of how Grundy functions in the fly regime, but what's happening is like Cox and Cameron don't have any synergy with the mids either. The good thing is they actually they do different things. Like Cox will just thump the ball forward. So the real problem for me in the midfield isn't just fucking personnel. It's whatever strategy they're using is not working because they're not getting anywhere near the opposition mids. They're just waltzing out unfucking touched so often, and they've been doing it all year. So that's what they actually need to fix. Now, Grundy can come in, and that'll disguise the fact, like when he's plucking it out himself and clearing it, that'll disguise the fact that there's still no synergy between the ruckman and the midfield. That's what they need to fucking really address.
No, and it still exposes the lack of defensive work that's done when the ball does hit the deck in the midfield.
And you get Adams flinging himself around trying to kill the ball.
I think out of we ended up with about 29 clearances on the weekend, and Adams was responsible for 7 of them. So he's still... in there. I think the problem with Adams is just the ball use away from some of those clearances. It is, you can win a clearance, great, but then if you're just turning it over, then what was the point of it all?
Oh, I totally agree. That's not working. That midfield setup is not working. It hasn't worked the whole year. And even in that first quarter, they were still beating us in midfield clearances. It's just we're winning the ball around the ground and then just...
send it back.
Yeah. So they actually need to address that. I don't know who's in charge of the midfield, but whatever they're doing isn't quite gelling. They need to find a better way to use their players, and I think they've got to get away from this belief that smaller players should be in the middle against bigger bodies because they just get too easily brushed aside.
I think the problem for us moving forward, and it's going to be probably a little bit exposed over maybe not so much the Port game, but the next 3 after that, and going into finals, is that differential with clearances is you're going to get smashed in finals with that.
Yeah,
and that's an alarming picture that's forming there. But then again, maybe they'll win the flag.
Oh, why not? Man did land on the moon also.
But we're winning games at the moment, so
allegedly,
it's the thing is,
they've won 9 in a row.
Loving the ride.
Yeah.
There are still things there to be fixed. The club, McFly, he's pretty upfront with where the deficiencies are, which is refreshing to hear. You can't look backwards at what you've got in your backyard and think that the fix is just sitting there as well. So if they're looking elsewhere to bring others in to address those needs, it's look when we brought in Ball and Jolly in.
So Ball and Jolly were like the icing on what was.
But they were deficiencies in 2009. They're the two that you were screaming for that you needed.
This is the other thing that worries me, and we did this in 17 with Maine and Wells, and bringing all these guys in, and it's the
money ball era.
Yeah, it's the St Kilda approach of we're just that far away. If we get a few players, we'll address these deficiencies. It's like no, you're like that far away. And getting those players is just keeping you that far away. I mean,
Geelong's in their second decade of doing it.
But Geelong's got a really good core of good players, like Hawkins. And then they got Cameron. Cameron's a really good player. They got Dangerfield. He's a really good player. Then
How's their salary cap going?
I don't know. Yeah, and then the ones they have actually sort of moneyball, like Tom Stewart and that, they're, again, really good players. So they've brought in a few sort of, journeymen and that sort of, like, what's his name? The ex-Hawthorn guy. Isaac Smith, whatever his name is. I think they brought in that Higgins at one point. I don't know. But, like, they sort of brought in players around the fringe, but they've got the really good core, whereas we're still struggling with the core, and then you're bringing in fringe players. And you look at St Kilda when they were winning a few, you still looked at them and thought, you're not going to be anywhere near the flag at the end of the year. And that's what's happened. They've just dropped away. So I'd rather finish lower and just be exposed for other weaknesses and go, okay, we're miles off it. We still need to fucking just address this through the draft, rather than thinking that McStay or some other B, C graders are really going to top us off.
Yeah, the other problem is like if we do lose to Goey, I think our compensation pick is in the late first round would be the best result. So you might end up with pick 12 or something. It's still not bad place to be, but you would have hoped if you were trading him, you would have been hoping for something down in the.
Well, the other thing to look at is this year, a big driver in us being in the top 4 is Nick Dacos, and that shows you what quality fucking means.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just bringing in another sort of Pat Lipinski type who's a solid complement to what's actually there. You need quality. When we won the flag, we had a lot of quality in that side. I always say, you have fucking Thomas at pick 2, Pendles at pick 5, Swan would have been a top 10 picks, Cloak would have been the top 10 pick. You had always
Brown and Reed.
Yeah, Brown and Reed were 8 and 10. Side bottom was 11. Beams was 29, but retrospectively again he would have been a top 10 pick. They had a lot of quality in that list, and in that side. Whereas you compare it to sort of like later on, like 218, and it was a lot more patched together from all these spare parts of other clubs and shit like that.
What was left from the injury battlefield?
It was pretty much was. Final thoughts about this game?
Fuck, it was good to win at the end.
Oh, fuck, it's good to smash Essendon by 4 points.
At any point towards the end, did you think we're going to pull ourselves over the line?
No.
Not in this one. I was. I think when Jones was lining up, and when the ball left his boot and it started to arc back to the right, you're thinking that's just that classic one. You're going to see it slip through, and that's it. Then all of a sudden, it just hit the post and went down. And the amazing thing is Essendon failed to set up on the out. I think we started to drift towards the right side of the field and dragged a few of Essendon's players, and we left the left pretty exposed. And I think they did question Fly about whether that was sort of like a set play or do you train for this type of thing, and clearly you did, and it wasn't a bad setup. It worked brilliantly.
No, they did. Oh, look, the one thing I thought is, based on the last 7-8 games, I thought we had an explosion of potential to win. I just didn't think we'd do it because we looked really just stuttering and looked like we just collapsed. And going into this game, I know we sort of joke every week we're going to lose by 10 goals. Like I thought...
I'm not joking.
Hopefully we win comfortably. Like after that first quarter, I thought, okay, hopefully it's just a comfortable game.
Yeah.
I don't expect the rest of the game to be like that first quarter. I thought, we'll be 38 points up. They'll kick a couple, we'll kick a couple, and it'll just end up being like a 7-goal margin. But my other fear was there's going to be some game where they are just flat. And I feared that what happened in the second, third quarter, we're going to get a game that's just totally that. And we'll battle and all that, but we'll lose by, 5 goals or whatever. The way we were playing, it just seemed like we stalled. But it's one of those things too. It's really funny because I was watching the game with someone and just said, it's like the 2-11 grand final when Pods Lee got injured. And I remember sitting there and just thinking, I bet this hurts us. And it did, because he went off and they moved Bartel centre-half forward and he just blitzed and he won the Norm Smith medal. And that injury actually helped their cause. When Maynard went off, it was like, okay, we've lost one of our better players. And Carmichael coming on, the most unlikeliest goal kicker, he's marked it twice inside 50. You don't know what would have happened if Maynard stayed on, if whoever would have been playing in Carmichael's spot would have been in the same spot, whether he would have converted. So that injury actually helped us in a bizarre way. And once we got a few good goals, it's like, okay, fuck, it's back on.
There's one other thing on that too, which I saw today. Is it Super Footy or something? It's probably endorsed by John Ralph, which it was in the end. Had a story about the AFL were going to investigate the medical subs because on Friday night Richmond substituted some suck for having an ingrown hair or a split toenail or something. I think 2 days later he was still TBC as to what his actual injury was, and they don't want this to be an exploitable tactic. So who does Super Footy run as a picture next to that article?
Brandon Maynard?
Could you fucking have picked it? They are literally trolling week to week. And it's the picture of Brainard.
Brainard.
He was in Thunderbirds. Maynard with holding one of the footies with the jacket on, celebrating. at the end of the game. Like, he's faked his injury.
Well,
There was a number of times during that celebration with Maynard, he winced. That he's clearly in pain. He'll probably well and truly miss this week.
well, but the thing is, you know, what made me laugh. I mean, I'm not disputing that he was injured. That Mason Redmond went off, and then they reported he's got internal bruising. How the fuck do you diagnose that from the bench? Isn't that something that requires scans and X-rays?
They used a tricorder on him.
And like Cameron Ling, I think it was brought up, or Campbell Brown, whatever, but just said, are they saying that so they can get around the concussion protocols? And it's like, there's no way you can diagnose. And then they said later he's got bruising to his lungs. How could you possibly know that unless you have a fucking tricorder from Star Trek and can actually scan in there?
You can just say he's got Braithwaite's disease.
That was one where I'm going...
I think he's got cunnilingus.
Final thoughts?
Great fucking win.
Okay,
in the end, great fucking win.
So we're playing traditional rivals, Port Adelaide.
Here or there?
Playing here.
At the home of
G.
football?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
My place.
How are Port travelling? They're
competitive. They had a ripper third quarter against Geelong. I think they kicked like 8 goals. It was actually funny because it was really close going in that last quarter, and Buckley was commentating, and he's going, it's all about winning the contested ball now. He goes, it's not about the structure, it's about winning the contested ball. And I was sitting there thinking, that is so fucking... I don't even play the game, but that is so far wrong. Because you could win the contested ball 10 times. If you feed it out and it all breaks down, who gives a fuck? The other team might win it once and then go down and kick a goal. So it's actually about what you do with the ball, and what you do with the ball is going to be reliant on structures. But the way Buckley was talking, it's like it's all about winning contested balls. Like, Collingwood often did that under him, but did nothing with it. It was just like, yeah, where do we go now?
don't think he remembered that part of his career?
Well, the players didn't execute.
Oh, that's it.
They didn't have the capacity. Sport's been competitive, but finals, I mean, mathematically it's still possible, but unlikely. What do you think? DeGoey, would he be back? I don't know.
Well, there was talk about there was no VFL this weekend. There was a scratch match planned or something to give Grundy, obviously as part of everyone else, a bit of game time, but nothing came out of that. The club, funnily enough, has been talking about some other event that happened on the weekend. So I don't know whether he'd be rushed in again this week. You'd surely have to bring him back through the VFL for at least a week.
Grundy.
No, I think Deggs can come straight back in. Yeah. Fly said he's gone gangbusters on his fitness, and even in that couple of weeks he's been out, and he's well and truly fit to go. So it's good enough for me. Deggs coming in.
Who'd you drop?
Sorry,
who'd you drop? Because I mean that Carmichael kicked too. He came on as the midi, so
well, I think
Maynard will probably be
he'd
out.
Be the obvious one. Well, that's it. I think Bianco. Did he do enough?
Probably not.
So you got a couple there that could probably go back. But yeah, DeGoey will definitely be an in.
Okay.
Grundy, yeah, I'd say probably 55% chance.
Okay.
Would be my gut.
That's your gut.
That's pretty big gut.
Your tip?
Port by 10 goals.
I'm not going to make these joking things. I tip Port by 61 points.
Yeah. Well, one of us will be right and one of us will be wrong. Or both of us will be right and both of us will be wrong.
Yeah, that's possible.
I should get a job on Channel 7 with that. It's sort of incisive commentary.
Incisive
as well.
Incisive. Jeez, we're fucked up.
You can't invent your own words. What's the point of being?
I don't know,
it's impossible.
Anyway, that's it from us. We'll be back next week.
And hopefully the bear won't be as vocal.
Yep. Later.
Catch.